This video is the overview of digital data flow, study definition repository, reference implementation. TransCelerate's Digital Data Flow initiative seeks to enable the flow of digital study protocol data in order to improve study design and accelerate startup through automation of processes and setup of study execution systems. TransCelerate has collaborated with others on the development of an open source vendor agnostic study definition repository. The SDR is based on an Unified Study Definitions Model USDM developed by CDISC. The SDR enables format of information from a digitized protocol and other sources to be standardized and stored centrally. This allows information to be passed to systems through an application programming interfaces or APIs used for study execution and data collection and reused throughout the clinical development lifecycle. In summary, the DDF initiative combines data standards and open source technology to enable the flow of digital protocol data across systems involved in the design and execution of a clinical trial. The Study Definitions Repository Reference Implementation or SDR-RI is a model implementation of a repository that uses USDM, which was developed by CDISC to facilitate data exchange and provide usable code to promote adoption through open source. It is intended to show stakeholders some of what is possible using USDM to facilitate end-to-end data flow. Companies are free to develop their own implementation of SDR or other products that use this USDM standard. The SDR RI was developed by TransCelerate collaborating with Accenture, Microsoft, along with other life science technology vendors. The SDR RI code functionality includes being able to consume digital protocol data from a source such as an upstream study builder to enable downstream systems such as clinical trial management systems to pull data from SDR and provide search, view, and version capabilities for stored protocols. The main components of SDR RI include a database to store protocols based on the USDM, an API for both source and consumer systems, and a user interface UI providing key capabilities for storing, retrieving, viewing, and reporting. This video will go into more detail on SDR UI and API features along with details on accessing and installing the system. The Study Definitions Repository RI user interface is a web application built to enable users to browse study definitions they store in the SDR. Please note that any information you upload to this SDR RI can be viewed by any other users. An SDR user can choose to search studies, view the detailed definitions, view and compare revisions, as well as view the schedule of activities for a study design as it is being built. Using the recent activity dashboard on the home page, users can quickly get to the studies that have been recently modified in the system. Additionally, there is a study comparison feature that allows user to view difference between two different studies conforming to same USDM version. There are a few features exclusively available only for admin users that will allow configuration of permissions and privileges to access one or more study definitions in SDR. Finally, the system usage report enables an admin user to view a list of API calls to SDR for a given time period to understand the exchange of data stored in the system. Now we shall see a demo of these features on the SDR reference implementation website. This is the login page of SDR RI UI application. User can click login to DDF application link to authenticate themselves in order to view studies stored in the SDR. The get token for SDR API link can be used to generate an authentication token in order to submit SDR API request from any REST client or integrating systems. Once the user successfully authenticates themselves in the SDR, they are redirected to homepage which lists the recently modified studies in the system over the last 30 days. User can choose to click on any of these studies in order to view the study details. The study details allows the user to navigate to the definition of a study, displayed here in an hierarchical tree structure. This view displays a single upload version of a study conforming to a given USDM version. The user can click each note and expand notes as applicable to view the details on the right hand side pane. The View Revision History page allows user to see the history of updates done to a study. This screen lists all the upload versions created in SDR for a given study definition. User can choose any two versions to view the differences between them. On navigating back to the study details page, there is a View SOA matrix button that renders a view of schedule of activities of the study, which is built against specific upload version of the study definition. This tabbed view renders one SOA tabular matrix for each timeline under each study design. Each of these matrices holds additional information on activities that list the associated biomedical concepts, procedures, and links for sub-timelines. The footnotes at the bottom of the matrix list the reason for activities and procedures being conditional as defined in the study design. This view can be exported to Excel using the Export button. The SOA matrix feature is enabled only for studies conforming to USDM version 1.9 or above. Next is the study search feature that allows an SDR user to search across all available study definitions stored in SDR by providing search criteria as shown. The USDM version is a mandatory search parameter, and another search field along with this enables user to search the study definitions. A successful search displays the first 20 matching studies with some basic details from the definition, and user can scroll additional results into view to see all matching studies. The user can choose to navigate any one of these results by clicking on corresponding result row. Next is the studies comparison feature that allows user to select any two studies and view their differences. Here, the user can search a specific version of each study to be compared. And invoke the comparison to see a side-by-side view difference in definition highlighted as shown. User can exit and launch new comparison using the exit button. User can log out by clicking on logout and ending their session with SDR and can be successfully redirected back to the login page. The SDR RI API endpoints can be invoked using an authentication token or an API key. Authentication token can be generated from SDR UI login page, and API key can be generated by privileged users through API Management Developer Portal. The SDR RA API endpoints are primarily implementing the API specs of reference architecture as defined in CDISC USDM. The key endpoints catering for the creation and retrieval of study definitions in SDR follow the latest API spec of reference architecture, and each version of the endpoint supports one or more USDM versions. Some of the GET endpoints seen here allow users to view basic details of all studies available in SDR, from which a user can choose a specific study to view its latest or specific upload version by passing the study ID and optionally an upload version to respective GET endpoint. The post and the put endpoints allows user to create and update study definitions that conform to a specific USDM version. The system performs basic conformance, ID uniqueness, and reference integrity checks before creating a version of the study definition in SDR. The SOA and the ECPT endpoints are additional feature endpoints built into the SDR reference implementation to cater to building schedule of activities and drafting the common protocol document respectively. Now we shall look at some of these SDR RA API endpoints in action. For this demo, we have used Postman to demonstrate SDR RA APIs. You can use any REST client to connect to the SDR RA API endpoints. For every SDR RA API endpoint call, user should pass an authentication token which can be generated from the SDR UI token generation link on the login page. The token should be added to each request. Additionally, a client certificate configured in SDR must be added to all API requests. To create a new study in SDR that conforms to specific USDM version, the corresponding version of post endpoint must be invoked. The USDM version header is a mandatory parameter to ensure right set of validations are executed on the JSON request body. On successful post, a study is created and SDR returns entire study definition with a unique study ID. SDR upload version is an integer value which increments by 1 for each revision submitted on a given study using put endpoint. If there are any conformance errors, the system would not create a study and respond with list of errors in the JSON. Alternatively, user can use conformance endpoint to know of any errors even before attempting to create a study in SDR. Next is study history endpoint that allows user to fetch all the studies with versions information that have been modified with given date range in the SDR. The desired study ID can be chosen to fetch the definition using study get endpoint. The study get endpoint retrieves the latest version of a given study. Here too, USDM version is a mandatory header parameter. The response include entire study definition JSON as stored in the SDR, along with the two sections audit details and additional links available for a study as seen here. Optionally, a specific upload version can be fetched by specifying upload version in the query parameter. Each of the study definition and related endpoints are versioned to cater different USDM versions that a study may conform to. The API USDM versioning endpoint lists the mappings of API version to the USDM version for the user to choose right endpoints to perform get post actions for a study definition in SDR. The SOA matrix endpoint is built exclusively to fetch elements from study that would help build schedule of activities for schedule timeline under a study design in a study definition. For a study, this endpoint fetches all SOA information for every study timeline defined in a definition. For steps on client certificate creation and information on other SDR API endpoints, please refer the SDR RA API user guide. With this, SDR API walkthrough is completed. The SDR reference implementation is hosted on a cloud platform leveraging its default network security and authentication features. The SDR RA infrastructure is configured to host three major components of SDR. The SDR UI web application, which is built on Angular, is hosted on web service from the cloud provider. The SDR API built on .NET Core is hosted on Web API service from the cloud provider. The API is additionally secured with certificate authentication. The SDR database is a NoSQL database from the cloud provider to store study definition documents. The SDR UI and API can be accessed publicly with appropriate user credentials and additional authentication configured on them. The infrastructure for SDR can be set up using Terraform scripts available on the SDR platform repository on GitHub, and the GitHub actions available on the same repo can be referenced to deploy to target cloud platform. The entire SDR RA platform setup and additional manual configurations can be found in SDR RA setup and deployment guide. This table lists the cloud platform services recommendations required for hosting SDR on major cloud service providers. For additional details on SDR reference implementation, please refer to links given in the description.